What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Week 5 waiver pickups and streaming options show. Going to be doing a little bit of a different format this week with doing both in the same episode. So if you guys wouldn't mind hitting me up or dropping a comment in, whether you're listening to the podcast form on the YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it. Let me know what you think of this going forward, because I think this is how I want to structure this for the rest of the year. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the running back waiver wire options for Week 5. I'm going to break this down into tiers if this is the first time you're listening. So tier 1 for me for running backs is going to be Damian Harris and Chase Edmonds. Now, I feel it makes me extremely queasy to have a Patriots running back in my top tier of waiver ads, but Sony Michel was placed on IR. He's not expected to be there for a long time, but nonetheless, he's on IR. And to me, he is the best running back, the best pure rusher for New England. So, if we go back a couple of months to the offseason, there was a lot of positive buzz coming out with Damian Harris out of camp. So maybe this isn't as gross as it seems, but in true Patriots fashion, Damian Harris gets activated and comes in and immediately gets 17 carries. He put up 100 yards in Week 4. So his pass catching upside is going to be limited with James White and Rex Burkhead, but I think he should be handling the majority of the carries. And once Cam gets back, I think it's going to make life even easier for Damian Harris. So the other guy is Chase Edmonds. Either we got fooled by Kenyon Drake at the end of last year, or he's more banged up. If you remember in training camp, there was the report of him being in a boot. He famously tweeted out for fantasy managers to draft him, and he'll lead you to a championship, and it's not that big a deal, and yada yada. But either way, he just hasn't looked the same, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Chase Edmonds start to eat into his workload a little bit more. He's been seeing, I think, 34% of the snaps through the first 4 weeks. So I think he could end up taking on a bigger role here going forward. Tier 2 running backs, Justin Jackson, Jamal Williams, Alexander Mattison. Yes, I know Jamal Williams is on a bye, but out of these running backs, he has standalone value. And if Aaron Jones were to go down, I think it'd be Wills up for Jamal. Justin Jackson, we obviously know that Austin Eckler is dealing with that hamstring injury that's going to keep him out for at least a month. So he's someone you can look at there, because I don't think Joshua Kelly hasn't done enough to be the sole back in that backfield. So Justin Jackson is going to get his fair share of carries as well. Probably looking at 10 to 12 touches per week, I would assume. Alexander Mattison, kind of the same thing as Jamal Williams. The obvious backup there, and if anything happens to Dalvin Cook, Madison is going to skyrocket. Tier 3 for me is going to be a couple more handcuffs plus a guy who's going to be seeing a boost in value with the MCL injury to Nick Chubb. And that's going to be Darrell Williams, Tony Pollard, Brian Hill, and D'Ernest Johnson. With Johnson, don't chase the yards there and the touches. So 13 carries, got 95 yards. But I think we could see something more similar to the Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison split last year when Stefanski was in Minnesota, where Madison was getting, on average, like between 5 to 7 carries per game, as long as Dalvin Cook was healthy. There were only a handful of games where Madison saw double-digit carries. So I wouldn't go crazy on fab with him or anything, but he should be involved nonetheless. Tier 4, a couple of guys to keep your eyes on if you are desperate at the position. Keyshawn Vaughn and Gus Edwards. Keyshawn Vaughn, he finally got his time. Had a touchdown in Week 4 with LaShawn McCoy leaving with the ankle injury and Leonard Fournette banged up. With a quick turnaround, Keyshawn Vaughn could be looking at backup duty behind Rojo on Thursday. Gus Edwards has quietly been involved on a week-to-week basis. He's currently leading that team in rushing yards. So maybe this is a case where we see him to start getting more work over Mark Ingram. These snaps in Baltimore have kind of been all over the place between the three running backs. Gus Edwards obviously doesn't have much upside in PPR leagues, but if you're in a half PPR or a standard league and you're in a 14, 16 team league, I think Gus Edwards is worth a look there. Moving on to wide receiver, tier 1 for me this week, T. Higgins, Tim Patrick, and Laviska Shenault. After only playing 22% of the snaps in week 1, T. Higgins has now seen at least 57% of the snaps for Cincy over the past 3 games and has averaged over 7 targets per game during that span as well. Cincinnati is 3rd in the NFL in passing rates, so there's going to be plenty of opportunity for Higgins going forward. And I think AJ Green is washed. Tim Patrick, obviously not a sexy name by any means, but with Sutton out, Patrick has been playing pretty well. He's had touchdowns in back-to-back games, and that includes going 6 for 113 and 1 in week 4 against the Jets. I noticed the Jets, obviously, he has a much tougher matchup with New England coming up in week 5, but after that, he gets Miami and Kansas City. So between Patrick and Judy, that's going to be the majority of the targets going around there for Denver. Laviska Shenault, he hasn't really exploded yet. He had a nice game this last week with over 80 yards, but he's been steady so far, and his routes have been increasing each week. And Jacksonville is just behind Cincinnati in passing rate. So even though it seems crowded with Chark and Keelan Cole there, I still like the upside of Laviska being the dynamic playmaker that he is. Tier 2, we have Traquan Smith, Brandon Ayuk, Scotty Miller, Greg Ward, Cole Beasley, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Now with this group, obviously again MVS on a bye, but after they come back, Devontae Adams should be back, and I think that is going to help Marquez Valdez-Scantling a lot more than it's going to hurt him, since defenses aren't going to be able to key in on him. Another name I'm really intrigued by in the second tier is Scotty Miller out of Tampa Bay. He's had at least 70 yards in 3 of his 4 games. I'm not expecting Chris Godwin to play. Mike Evans is now dealing with an ankle injury. Now, keep an eye on this going forward because Scotty Miller is banged up himself. He is battling through hip and groin issues. But with the quick turnaround, Scotty Miller could be a guy who just, tries to push through this and play. And if he does, he's another off-season training camp darling who's getting a bunch of buzz. And there was a lot of talk with him and his connection with Tom Brady. So to piggyback off of that, Justin Watson as well. He's widely available, so I think he is worth an add, especially if you were in 14 to 16 team leagues. Tier 3 for week 5: Darnell Mooney, Zach Pascal, and Keelan Cole. Darnell Mooney is another name that is intriguing to me. His route participation has been increasing each week, and he brings something to that team that nobody else has. He ran a 4.38 coming out of Tulane this year, and he is only 1% rostered across ESPN and Yahoo League, so he's widely available. So if you need someone who's going to be a little bit more boom bust, I think you can look there. And quietly, he is now ahead of Anthony Miller for targets, catches, and yards. Tier 4 for me, Anthony Miller. That hurts my heart to have him down here, but got to do what you got to do. Olamide Zaccheaus, Golden Tate, and Randall Cobb. The name that I'm most intrigued with here is going to be Olamide Zaccheaus. The other names just they're just not exciting, right? Golden Tate, I don't know. I'll talk about Daniel Jones here at the end of the streaming options to give you an idea for that. But again, just something I'm not super excited about. And then Randall Cobb, same thing. After he had his blow-up game last week, he kind of came back down to earth. So with Zaccheaus, though, he's interesting because Julio's obviously dealing with a hamstring injury. He tried to play through it on Monday night, but was not able to finish the game. So behind Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage, Zaccheaus has been the clear 3, and he had himself a nice game on Monday night where he had 8 catches for 86 yards on 9 targets. So definitely somebody in your deeper leagues that you want to keep an eye on and potentially pick up. All right, let's shift over to streaming options for this week. Let's kick it off with quarterback. Tier 1 is going to be Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert. Kirk Cousins has at least 250 yards in his score in 3 of his 4 games this year, and he has 2 games with multiple scores, and now he gets Seattle. I don't think I need to go any further with that. Justin Herbert was just 10 yards away from having 3 straight 300-yard games, and he put up 3 touchdowns against a Tampa team that was giving up the 4th fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Now he's going to get New Orleans, who's giving up the 7th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. And it will be worth noting, if Marcus Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins were to miss, maybe they can take advantage of a defense the way that Detroit was not able to. Tier 2 is going to kind of be the matchup tier. Gardner Minshew and Teddy Bridgewater. Gardner Minshew is the most widely rostered quarterback here. He's rostered in 46% of leagues across ESPN and Yahoo. Minshew gets Houston this week. They look better on paper than what I think they actually are. They've given up the 10th fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, but they're 19th in pass defense DVOA according to Football Outsiders, and they have PFF's 6th worst coverage grade. And Minshew now has 300-plus yards and multiple touchdowns in 2 of his last 3 games. Teddy Bridgewater, he gets Atlanta. Do I have to say anything else? Tier 3 for the quarterbacks: Phillip Rivers, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr. Rivers is set up nicely with matchups himself. He gets Cleveland, Cincinnati, a bye, and then Detroit. Obviously, Cleveland just gave up 500 yards through the air to Dak Prescott. Obviously, a different level of offense there. But I still think Phillip Rivers could get it done. And if you're desperate, if you're in a 16-team league, something like that, he's definitely worth a look. Now, Daniel Jones, I have been the furthest thing from a Danny Dimes truther. I never really understood the hype train that he had. But if we're looking at this objectively, he's had some rough matchups to start the year. And now he gets Dallas, Washington, Philly, and Tampa Bay over the next 4 weeks. So if you are a Danny Dimes truther, now is the time to go out and get him. Either make a trade for him if you have to. He's rostered in less than 40% of leagues on ESPN and Yahoo. So you might just be able to pick him up. If someone has him, if they played him last year, they're probably even going to drop him unless they're looking ahead to the schedule he has coming up. So he is that is the reason why I was kind of looking at him whenever I was talking about Golden Tate. For tight end, man, how quickly this well dried up. Hopefully you got your tight end at the beginning of the season, because it is so bad with on waivers anyway that I'm recommending Robert Tonyan in my tier 1, even though he's on a bye. That is how quickly this dried up. With we were talking at the beginning of the season of how good tight end was looking, and it's still fine, but this waivers they dry up real quick. The other name here, Dalton Schultz. So he's been stepping up, obviously, with Dak Prescott slinging it 50 times per game. Schultz has stepped into that Blake Jarwin role. Sorry, Robbie, that he thought he was getting this year. Tier 2 for tight end: Jimmy Graham, Chris Herndon, Eric Ebron, and Logan Thomas. I did move Logan Thomas down from tier 1 to tier 2 from last week. The underlying numbers are still there. The requisite numbers are still there in terms of routes being run, in terms of targets. They're all still there, but it's just not happening for him. So hopefully you can snag Schultz or Tonyan, or hopefully you have you're able to pick up somebody like a TJ Hawkinson or a Jonnu Smith whenever they were more widely available in the beginning of the year. Herndon how else can we say? He's just been a massive disappointment. Everything has set up basically perfectly for him. He's just not getting it done. So tier 3, if you need that dart throw, Mo Alley-Cox. His routes were down significantly week 4. I think he ran like less than 10 routes, but he did find the end zone. Now they get Chicago, and then they have Cleveland and Cincinnati after that. So again, if you're in a 14, 16 team league or a 2 tight end league or something like that, Mo Alley-Cox is he's a solid dart throw if all these other guys are snagged up. For your defensive streamers for week 5, it is rough out there for defensive streamers for this week. There's not a lot of matchups that really pop off to me. The Chiefs will be at home to the Raiders with the Raiders' weapons being banged up. There was no Ruggs last week. There was no Edwards. Derek Carr hasn't really been turning the ball over much. He has no picks on the year, but he has lost 4 fumbles in the last 3 games, and he has been sacked 7 times over the last 3 games as well. So I'm not expecting a bunch of turnovers here, but I mean, if you're really struggling, there are certainly worse options you could go with. Arizona gets to go up against the New York Jets. I mean, dude, they're really not too much more we have to say with that. Sam Darnold is going to be questionable for this week, so that'll be the Joe Flacco show if he's not able to go. If you are very, very desperate, Miami is going to be at San Francisco. Now, obviously, if Jimmy Garoppolo is playing, this is not a place I would look. But if it's going to be one of Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard, I think you could look here if you absolutely had to. It'd be a big boost to this defense as well if Byron Jones were able to play. All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for the Week 5 waivers and streams. If you're checking this out on Podcast Forum and you are not subscribed, please do so. If you're checking this out on YouTube and you are not subscribed, please make sure to smash that subscribe button for us. It means a lot. We've been appreciating the support that we have gotten so far. And like I said at the beginning, let me know what you think of this structure and this format. Hit me up on Twitter. You can find me there at CKutzerFF. You can drop a comment in the YouTube section, on the podcast, whatever you're listening to. I will also put the link to the article in the description below that you'll be able to find. So if you want to go over to thefantasyauthority.com and check that out, you can see this full list. And I will also have an injury report at the beginning of that article as well. So I hope you guys have a good Week 5, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Perfect.